And hello and welcome to the MMO Buff Podcast, episode 20. It is the competitive experience.
20, can you believe it?
It's a nice little number, and it's going to keep growing.
a nice little... Of course it's going to... What are we going to do? Go backwards in our episodes? Episode
Well, no,
minus
we've
4?
We've just made it very clear we need to get to 11 billion. We've just been told. So we do have a little bit to go. So, hello folks,
Yes.
Good to have everyone here. Nice to see some familiar names and faces.
Yes.
And tonight, you have myself. But thankfully, I haven't been abandoned. I don't have to do a long monologue because we have a pseudo.
Hey everybody, how are you doing? It's Monday.
It's
Mondays.
Monday. I don't like this Monday. This Monday is a tiring Monday, but we'll talk about that later. The topic du jour, while I quickly try and think of a food reference, is of course the competitive experience. And we've got the question up on the block. Does everyone play MMOs for the purposes of competition, however you wish to phrase it? So our phrase is this. The core reason people play MMOs is competition.
Fact or
True
fiction?
or false? And I'm gonna make the argument here
Hold
that
on.
whether people...
Before you even go into the topic, you are so brilliant at just like, let's just charge right ahead. You kind of skip a couple of things occasionally. But that's okay.
Let's have a bit of structure in here then. Off you go, Pseudo.
Pseudo, cracking the whip. Hello. But yes, hello to all of you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. I could basically take a deep, deep breath and try to give everybody's name out. That's actually Mizpah's job. But, you know, for everyone who has gone to join us, we've got your Pershagers, your Screenagers, your Runes, your IRLs, your Anamikas, Badgers. We have Badgers. That's great. All the way through Monkey Ed. Hello again. It's good to see you. We have all the way down to things like Zyafire and Viper. So hello to all of you. And
It's funny you talk about badgers. I actually have a badger in my bathroom. It's a brush. I use it to shave.
I don't even want to know. I don't.
What's wrong with a shaving brush?
I didn't realize it was called a badger. And I think that
No, it's made from badger. It's an antique one.
you use a brush made out of badgers.
Yes.
Hashtag
What could possibly
Mizpah
be
Badger.
wrong with
Hashtag
using a
Mizpah
brush
Badger.
made out of badgers? I hasten to add, this is not a newly minted badger brush. That would be illegal. It is a traditional antique badger brush.
Okay, so you use something that you can't buy legally anymore to shave your face. That is a badger.
Well, actually, no, because if I tried to shave with a badger brush, I would be here for a really, really long time. And I think
is
the
it one of
rate of
those
attrition
things that
would actually be slower than the rate of growth, so kind of a negative shaving experience.
Fair enough. I also want to, yes, as we were saying, our fact fiction, the core reason people play MMOs is competition. If you have a comment or a question, do me a favor, preface it with a Q and a colon, and then put your question stuff in. I'm going to keep track of them, and we will be coming back to the various questions and things that are posed throughout the stream. But yes, now with that that thing said, normally we go into a huge bit of news about what's going on in the various MMO worlds and games, you know, from everything from Blizzard to the Secret World, all the way down to, you know, the little things like Pantheon, which is, you know, was on Kickstarter. But, you know, what we're going to do today, because we feel this topic is so rich, is we're actually going to skip that section. Because, you know, you guys are intelligent gamers. If you want to know an awful lot about what's going on in the games that you're really, really interested in, it's kind of repetitive for us to smack you in the face with stuff you know. But what I am going to say before we begin, be prepared. Mizpah and I don't always agree. There is a reason that we're both sitting here, sort of where he's over here,
Poised.
facing each other. So, and also, we don't expect everyone to agree with us. Healthy debate is what we want to nurture with you. And on that note, I basically shut up and let Mizpah talk. But yes, I will crack the whip and keep him in task. That's my goal.
Okay. So I'm going to take 5 minutes to let everybody know that the reason they do indeed play MMOs is for competition, whether they know this or not. There are a myriad of good reasons for playing an MMO. but the human psychology works in a certain way. And we are conditioned in society, whether we like it or not, to compare ourselves to others and to those around us. There is the saying, got to keep up with the Joneses. Well, it comes from somewhere. And from its worst iterations, hello, WoW gear score, to its best iterations, the competitive raiding scene we've seen in games from time to time, competition is a vital part of a game experience. It strengthens your experience, it strengthens the community, it adds longevity, and smart game design allows for multifaceted competition at multiple points in the gameplay experience. That is why everybody plays MMOs for competition, whether they know it or whether they don't know it. So, Pseudo, this is where you agree with me, yes?
No, not even close. I mean, I can agree to the fact that, you can develop into being competitive or playing for a competitive reason in a MMO. That I can completely agree with. However, I can tell you that I do not believe that that is the number one end all be all. Oh my gosh, yes, that is what this MMOs are for. I believe good design philosophy puts competition in. Otherwise, how is it a game? But I agree with the fact that there are some really negative iterations of competitive things, such as gear score. And I will state again, gear score. And I will also point out that when it comes to trying to build a game, you really need to understand, at least in my opinion, a developer who is passionate about gamer, because that's one of the things we've stated. When you talk about a game designer, you and I have stated point blank, they need to be passionate about making games or else there's no point.
Yeah.
But as someone who is passionate about making a game needs to recognize that competition is not the only thing people play MMOs for. Period.
You can get your kicks playing an MMO in lots and lots of ways, but competition is usually a driving facet. So at the end of the day, let's say we're playing a game. Let's invent a game. We're going to create a game called A Badger's Tale. Right. And in this game, you have to run around and collect badger hairs from slightly disgruntled badgers in order to make a, I quote, wet and warm badger shaving brush. I'll leave other people to decide how to interpret that. So that's your goal in this game. And you run around and you collect your badger hairs, and I might collect the golden hair of pointiness, and I might collect a long white hair, and I might get lots of really great stuff. Fantastic. And I'm going to meet up with you in a tavern at the end of the day because we're playing on an RP server, and sit down and share a mug of frothy ale and say, in character, "Ooh, how many badger hairs have you collected today?" And we're competing.
You're competing. I'm sitting there drinking my frothy ale, and I will reply back with, "None. I've been drinking all day."
And therefore you immediately establish your social status as someone that has not competed in the context of the game as effectively as those around you.
And I would see what you're right there saying is that if someone is not hitting every single target that a game offers, they're immediately ineffective. I disagree with that in an MMO. I mean, MMOs, what is MMO? What does it stand for? Massively multiplayer online. If you are going to state that the competition side of things is going to be the number one thing that makes somebody effective at playing a game, you're basically saying to a lot of people who go in for the social aspects only that they're ineffective.
Not at all, because you have a great word, efficiency. What does it mean if you're efficient?
I see where you're going with this. I'll just keep my mouth shut. I'll let you have your say. Go ahead.
What does it mean if you're efficient? It means you're achieving your aims in an effective means. Your cost of resource spend versus your time spend is actually giving you a good equation in terms of outcomes. So therefore, if you want to collect, 10 badger hairs a day, you've found a way of doing your badger hair dailies in a suitable amount of time.
I know how to play this game, just so that you know.
My point being, this is reflected in every single way. I think you could take any aspect of any MMO, and I could look at the gameplay mechanic within it, I could look at the experience of that element of the MMO, and I'm doubtless going to get put on the spot any moment now, and there will be an underlying point of comparison or competitiveness, either with yourself, because self-competition is valid, or against others, your peers, or your nemesis, your enemies, your rivals, your opposing faction. Whether you are simply wanting to stand in the middle of the town and go, I have the shiniest shoulder pads, it's still a form of competition.
Well, see, that's a different thing, because what you're talking about there are people who most of the time are being competitive with themselves. Now, I can agree that in an MMO, one of the things that can motivate a player to play is, you know, getting those shiny shoulders and showing that I did the risk reward scenario where I put in the time, I put in the effort, I got X reward, I now can display it. There can be an awful lot of growth in a game from that. I mean, otherwise, it's kind of pointless to play a game if you don't have some form of competition. But there are also going to be a bunch of other people who will never really level, who will never really, you know, go out after those hardcore bosses, who are there for the social experience, who are there to just basically goof off and see things, and they don't really care about those shoulder pads. They could walk by you wearing your Badger shoulder pads of shaving brush doom and look at you and be like, I really don't care. They could literally just walk past you and not even notice you because they don't care. That's not what motivates them to play the game.
So let's explore that one for a moment. Now, Ninachu came up with a great quote, and I'm going to pick it out of the chat. I'd happily spend 2 hours customizing my character, running around the world, decorating my house, and collecting dyes and housing items. Let's break that one down a little, shall we? So, Ninachu, you've got an awesome house. Can I come see it? That's an innate form of competition right there. Hey, that item, it's got this incredibly good black dye from Guild Wars 1 that you just couldn't get, and it cost a fortune. It's another innate form of comparison, because comparison in itself leads to a form of competition.
Okay, so basically what you're trying to say is that the entire purpose behind human evolution, and this is where we're really starting to go deep down the rabbit hole here. It's not just about games anymore. It's more now about the human mind and sociological development. Wow, look at us. Anyway, what you're trying to say then is that simply being aware of somebody else immediately puts you into a mind where you are judging yourself versus them, which immediately puts you into a competition whether you realize it or not. Is that what you're trying to say?
I think subconsciously or otherwise, people compare. Whether they're aware of that, I would say that it is a true state for the majority of the population.
Okay. So what about the people who can't see, who are blind? They can't see those things.
I have two blind people sitting on a bench playing cello at each other and listening.
Playing cello.
They're comparing.
That's the thing. What you've just done then is you have basically just said that they are automatically doing something that has to have some kind of competitive thing to it.
I'm showing that it's possible. You gave me the non sequitur of a blind person being unable to compete. I'm going, no, still can.
Okay. They can compete, but that doesn't mean that everyone is doing so. How do you put, and maybe this is really where we need to go, because to me, when I play an MMO, it's not necessarily about the competition, although I admit full freely that I do enjoy the competitive spirit, especially if I can be better than you, Mizpah.
You can try.
I can try. And watch me succeed and then rub it in your face. The competitive
As you will massively, yes. This will happen from time to time.
And then he'll do the same back to me. But I have that competitive side to me. But the real big thrust of why I'm doing things is to do so in a manner that allows me to cooperate. Now, do you believe, and I kind of in a way think that to have a real good sense of cooperation with a group of individuals, some competitive nature has to be there, but it needs to be a supportive competitive nature, which is very, very different than I'm gonna smash your face in with my score. La 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 gear score. My gear score is better than yours, so obviously I'm better than you. That's a completely different style. I mean, there's I think cooperation competition, and then I think that there is the other side of competition. Would you agree
I think
with
the
that?
point I would make here, in part but not in whole. So the first point I'd make here, cooperating, working in a group towards an aim, having a set of shared values that are not based towards a competitive outcome, are all activities that can take place alongside competition, and usually do.
They're not mutually exclusive. I can see
They
that.
may be a focus, but they're not mutually exclusive. And it's because of that, and we've touched on it here now, the fact that even if you're undertaking a non-competitive activity, let's say we are running around, and I'll use a guild example. There is two people have started a guild. The guild wants to... The guild doesn't know what it wants to do. The guild wants to exist, have fun, provide a great safe place for people to be. It wants to sit out and chill and team speak and talk about badgers. Don't know why they want to do that, but we're going in a badgerly direction today, it must be said.
We're going to have to change the name of this show from the competitive experience to the competitive badger.
I now have in my head, badger, 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 badger. No, anyway. So, what happens? This group gets together, they communicate, they get used to each other, they talk, they start working out how to do things, they go and do some dungeon runs, they get good at the dungeon runs, they go and they think, hey, let's do a raid. And some people who are better than others at certain things start showing people how not to stand in the fire. So they're going to describe themselves as being social, friendly, they're going to be training, they're going to be encouraging, and what are they doing? They're making their guild innately competitive, able to take on that PvE challenge. We've not even got to the concept of PvP players here.
Yeah. The way that you're defining it, I think it's almost as if, from that definition, it's almost as if saying if you are someone who is going to school, you are competing with the teachers, because they're there to teach you some subject matter, like stay out of the fire or something.
Technically, you're competing with your peers in a school environment to get your percentile grade at the end of it that then opens up other opportunities in life.
Well, okay, that's fair enough. But what I'm saying is I don't necessarily think, and we've had a couple of people make mention of things like, Solarius had pointed out technically competition is how we exist. Men competed for the limited resources of women to have children with. Men who didn't compete didn't have offspring, that kind of thing. There's almost like this, the human condition kind of aspect, as something that Aussie had pointed out as well. Although he believes that you have a belief about the human condition deeply ingrained in your brain.
And I really like Etan666's comment. Guild recruitment is competition. What a brilliant example of it.
A guild recruitment is competition if your guild is set up that way. How many guilds out there are literally just an open door policy, and you can't say they don't exist because you know they do.
Oh, they do exist, and even if my guild is let me have 37,000 people inside this structure that never ever talk to each other and don't know why they're sharing the same guild tag, I am still competing for that member to join.
You may be, but that person who joined you may not be in that competitive edge. They just might be.
They still made a choice. Yeah, they've still made a choice. Something's caused them to make that choice.
Are you telling me that every choice that a person makes is 100% about competition?
No, I'm saying that all of the factors that lead to the choice that lead to the choice that the person makes, and my screen's put my screensaver on the wrong time. Every factor that leads to someone making a choice, I can now. Screenshot. Is relevant. So the person joining the guild may not be aware of why they're joining Guild X, but they're doing so for a reason. It might just be that you were putting an announcement out at the right time while they happened to be staring at the pixels. But you still did something to cause that reaction. That's still competing. You did it, someone else didn't. They're now in your guild.
See, I have a hard time believing that, and maybe that's the thing. I think you and I have a very similar agreement here. I think we're coming at it at different angles. So let me see if I can put us on the same page so we can see where we go from here. I do believe that competition is something that does occur. I do not believe it is the number one motivator for why things occur, but I do believe it can have a factor in why things do happen. So, yes, some people can sit here and go, there was a debate that it was actually currently even in our chat, because this particular conversation was sparked from another one in another location. When you have role players, they compete against each other to see who can, bring about the greater story changes or the arcs, or follow through with certain rules or guidelines that have been set down, because roleplay itself is a game. There are rules. Don't break character in some places, or if you're going to type in ICC or OCC or whatever. And you can have that kind of competitive side to it. But I think that the level of focus and attention put on the competitive side of something occurring, because like I said, I do agree that it is a part of the motivational fact. I just don't think it's the only one. But the amount of focus someone would put on saying this is competitive versus this is not competitive, I think changes how do I put? I know what I'm trying to say, but it's sort of sitting there going. Urgh.
But I'm going to postulate back in the other direction to you.
Yay, postulation.
Inside a game, there is no such thing as a non-competitive environment. For that reason, that is why the core reason that people play MMOs is competition. It may not be their core focus, it may not be their rationale, but it's an underlying driver on every choice they make and the environment they're in.
Well, I just said that everything can be impacted by competition. I didn't say it's the core reason. I don't believe it is the core reason for everyone. I think that's where you and I disagree. I think the focus that people put onto the amount of, weight they want to give competition in their gameplay will impact this type of things they do, be it PvE, PvP. I stand there in my gear score, gear score. We really should do a small little rant on gear score. We really, really should. Just because it's going to keep going. But
you mean the environment whereby you have to prove you've already completed something to be allowed to go and do something which is designed to give you the rewards to go and do the next thing that you had to have already done to go there in the first place?
Don't even get me started on that one, because that'll take me down a different route. But I think the amount of weight a person puts on the competitive side of things impacts what they will play in a game. I do agree with that. I do not, however, believe that it is the core reason for everyone. And I think that is why we have the different types of games that we have. We have the type of games where there is pure PvP-centric focus, like Aeon. There was some PvE, but it was very much so about the Asmodeans versus the other people. I mean, there was a lot of competition. It was about the PvP competition, and that was a big part of the design philosophies for that game. I think in that particular case, you are then looking at the weighted advantage being, I'm playing this because of that. I don't know very many people who have turned around who I know who play Aeon and go, I only played Aeon because it was pretty. I didn't do anything. And yet I can name other games where people literally logged in, never left the major cities, spent the entire time telling stories to each other. Just walking around the city and discussing, the events that we're going, because I really like the lore. And I didn't mean to whack my mic there. I'm sorry. But let's say you are the classical lore hound. You want to experience all the story arcs in a game. You want to see everything. You want to do everything. You want to know everything. You want to run around and read every book on the shelf. You want to go and find all the seashells, to quote from another game. all the seashells to go with those badgers.
She sells seashells on the seashore? No, maybe not. If I want to experience all the game because I love the lore, I have to be capable of doing so. In a PvE environment, I must be able to compete to get to that stuff.
Okay. Unless you read the books. Just saying. No. That's the thing. I think you and I have a very similar thought.
And I've got to cut across because I have to quote BC Larius here.
No, you won't, because I'm going to go to Unk Ocean first before you quote BC Larius, because I know that you and BC Larius. Yes, you headbutt your mic. I'll whack it. It's a competition. Who can hurt their mic the most today? That's what we're after. And actually, I'll come back to you, UK Ocean, because what you're saying, I think, is going to lead off of what I'm going to say. You and I both know that competition can be a part of the game. I think it is okay, and I don't think I'm disagreeing with the fact that people do compete in games. Period. I'm not disagreeing with that. I had seen somebody, for example, Viper, mention that, competitiveness actually makes some games very popular. And I agree with that. I mean, you don't play things like tag when you're a kid just for, the fact that, hey, I get to stand here and run around. Most of them play because they want to be it or they don't want to be it. And there's a competition inherent in that. I mean, this takes us all the way back. But what I am saying is that when it comes to competition, not everyone is driven by that as their number one motivator. That is all I am saying. Now, UK Ocean said, I play for fun. I don't have time for competition anymore. Now, here is where I take another side and say, I believe that when someone is playing for fun, how they derive their fun can be through multiple methods, competition being one of them. So that's where I'm going to go with it. What I'm going to say is people motivated can find fun in competition or other things. It doesn't have to be just core competition and let that be the number one major focus in their brain. That's what I am getting to.
And I think that's where we diverge. I think we've highlighted the fact that competition exists in all strands, in all forms of gameplay, whether you want it to or not.
Yes, that's probably a good way to put it.
Thus, because of that, it is someone's core, even if it's only subconscious. That's the basis of my argument. Now, you may consciously be doing something different, but subconsciously, for the majority of the human race, subconsciously that's how you're going to be wired, whether you want to be or not.
Now, see, this we're starting to get into the motivation of actual players, and we're starting to get into what makes people interested in playing games in the first place. Why are some people drawn to playing League of Legends and others won't even touch it with a 10-foot pole? You know, this is some type of heavy discussion into the motivations of gameplay. And that is actually, by the way, a huge topic we're going to be going over in some of the next episodes of MMO Buff, is we're actually going to dig really deep into the motivations of gameplay. What I will state for you is competition is one of them. And some people can be incredibly competitive and others could give two badgers. And it actually shows in the types of games that are created and what people do to play a game. So you may say it's a subconscious thing. I believe
there's also a reason why the World Televised Hopscotch Championships was not a great success.
Probably because they didn't have you doing the announcing?
Please, no. I have no desire to commentate on the World Hopscotch Championships.
What about Morris dancing?
I know a joke about Morris dancers, but I'm not sure that's suitable pre-Watershed.
Huh. What about badger tossing?
I think the RSPCA would get quite upset.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a real badger. But anyway, we're kind of diverging. But we are going to be getting into the true motivations and how they actually impact. And I want to reserve me going heavily in depth into it until I have the ability to present to everybody the core terminology. What I do think we need to do, though, is really look at competition, period. Because I think you and I both agree that there is competition to be found in all kinds of things. And it could be the making of the most beautiful house, or getting your hands on the best dye for your gear, or having the best shoulder pads you've ever seen, or killing the most people in PvP, etc. I mean,
having the worst reputation on the server. That's a form of competition.
That's true. Some people do that. So, yeah. And no, I did not say horse dancing, although that would be really funny. I actually, to be perfectly frank,
so we've got this seashell horse dancing, badger hair collecting MMO. Should we do a Kickstarter here? There must be mileage in this.
There must be. However, I want you to voice it in your best radio horse, disc jockey, vampire voice ever. I basically mean talk.
Yes. In joke, my apologies. One thing we haven't done, though, I mean, let's define what competition is, as you've just said.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, what is it innately? It's achieving a certain goal or goals in comparison with others or self.
I can get behind that statement. Because you don't always have to compete against others. Competing against yourself is probably one of the biggest forms of competition out there.
And I would state that someone that does compete against themselves, they're usually a better competitor. Because you are always the hardest person to satisfy.
I will agree to a point, but what I will throw out there along human motivational lines is that self-competition can also be incredibly negative, as can be competition versus others. Someone could compete with themselves on a mental level to be as abusive mentally towards themselves as possible, always putting themselves down, etc. That is a form of self-competition. It's a negative habit.
Didn't say it was positive.
This is true. It is a negative habit, but it does happen to occur. So I agree. Goals is a must for there to be a competition, whether you are trying to beat your best at whatever you are doing, positive or negative. And the same thing goes with whether you're doing it with a group or against somebody else. I believe competitive competition can be really, really awesome. I believe co-op competition, however, is where the strongest things are built. But that's an opinion.
This gives us a great segue as we look at our lovely pre-prepared show notes and consequences of competition. So it's all well and good saying we're playing a game, we're competing, but how do you create an environment where competition remains healthy? How do you identify the consequences of competition? How does that feed into motivation? And how do you make the experience of competition a positive one? Now, we've got to be careful not to tip over into Tuesday's show, because that's going to be kind of interesting. And you can pick up on that in a minute.
Yes.
But okay, let's start with this. Pseudo, what are the consequences of competition, good and bad?
Okay. There are multiple. Competitions, good and bad, can help motivate people to become better at whatever it is they're doing. That is both good and bad. Again, like I had just said. Some of the more negative consequences is people can be filtered out of a group, could feel ostracized, could feel inadequate, could feel better than everybody else, could feel that they are the cat's meow, the badger's hair, the dancing horse. There is a degradation in, I don't want to say, well, no, I will say it, community. There is a degradation in community. There is
the potential for a degradation in community. Actually, competition handled well strengthens communities.
No. I'm giving the negatives first. Gosh darn, let me go. But yes, the negative side of things can destroy individuals, it can destroy groups, and it can actually destroy games. I think, however, I need to clarify one thing. I had said in, if you haven't seen our quick bite from Cosmotronic on Friday, go see it. Both Mizpah and I took a soapbox stand about communities. And I do think, and I specifically stated, there are some designs and some game philosophy and development philosophy which caters to that negative environment of, like, hardcore trash talking, hardcore trolling, apathy towards the other player, things like that. There are some games that actually cater to that. And that's a part of their design philosophy. So in a way, it strengthens those communities because those communities' goals are to be like that. I don't agree with that as what I would like to see, but I recognize that that is out there. But
here's a key point, and again, a little bit of a sideline, but a very relevant one. Mm-hmm. It's very easy to list off a ton of negatives to do with the concept of competition.
I haven't gotten to the positives yet.
No, but this is relevant.
Okay.
And because of those negatives, there is sometimes an innate view to say, hey, I play to have fun. Hey, I'm not here to compete. Hey, I'm here to be social and friendly and nice, because of all the things that lie on the other flip side of that coin. Whereas if you want to say, hey, I'm here to be really competitive, it can come across as being negative.
It can have a negative connotation applied to it.
Hell no. There is no way that should come across as being negative in a sensible game or a sensible community. I play games to be fiercely competitive. I am very happy to win. I am very happy to lose. I'm very happy to get schooled by someone far better than me. What I'll do is learn. What I'm not here for in a game, competitive or otherwise, is to be in, around, or part of a toxic community. It's why I don't particularly like the majority of MOBAs that are out there. Doesn't mean the games aren't great, doesn't mean the mechanics aren't great, doesn't mean they don't have great people in them, but there is a cultural norm at certain levels in certain games which typifies a negative community. Sorry, MOBA fans, but it does happen. We can point to lots and lots of examples of it.
Right.
The trick is this. People need to actually, in my personal view, wake up and realize that competition happens at all levels in all games and say, okay, we'll be cool with that. But that doesn't mean you need to be cool with idiots. It doesn't mean you need to be cool with a toxic community. It doesn't mean it has to be viewed as negative. Simply put, you have this. You have people and communities that are negative. You have people and communities that are positive. There was a side discussion going on to do with someone dropping into a dungeon and saying, but I'm wearing cloth because it looks awesome, and getting one shot. Or someone running around trying to melee as a hunter, or whatever they might be doing. You know, that's not someone being non-competitive. That is someone being an idiot.
Oh,
Please
not
get out of my
necessarily.
dungeon.
That's not necessarily true. They could be uneducated. They could be a troll.
If they're being a
there's
troll, they're being an idiot. If they're truly uneducated, their attitude will show that. You'll quickly work with that person. They'll quickly improve. It'll be a great experience for all.
It depends on now. See, we're starting to move really heavily into Tuesdays types of discussions where we're doing all the community stuff that we work on. The thing is, it depends entirely upon the effort you want to put in. What I am going to state is this, going back a little bit further to one of the comments you had said. If someone comes out and says directly, I am competitive, there can be a lot of incredibly negative connotations to it. It's very different than saying, I am self-competitive, because the moment you don't feel someone is coming at you in a competitive manner, especially if you don't feel that you are good enough yet at whatever it is someone is competing you with, you don't have the negative association to it. I do believe, however, that the competitive side of things, or stating that you are competitive, and having that negative connotation has actually impacted the definition of hardcore versus casual.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I don't agree with most people's definition of those two terms, but that's another. We've done that show.
We've done an entire show on hardcore versus casual. I mean,
Let's.
Go ahead.
I think we're going to have a fair few questions here. Looking at, there's some great chat going on.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've put out our viewpoints.
We have.
I think a lot of this now comes down to, well, what needs to be dealt with in a competitive environment? How do you deal with the idiots that you can't avoid? I'm seeing tons of great comments in there. So, shall we jump to the questions?
Well, before we go there,
and BC Larius, you missed it. That was about episode 13, 14. A whole show on that topic, hardcore versus casual.
And Pond Life. Don't forget Pond Life.
Oh, and Pond Life.
Because Gazimov had coined Pond Life. Yes. We've had quite a few things, and I'm scrolling through trying to make certain that I can get some of the really good comments out. So if you've seen somebody who's made an awesome comment, please let me know, because what I'm looking for are the people who are asking questions.
And I'm just going to say again, because it's one of my personal bugbears, the amount of time you spend playing a game bears no resemblance to whether you are casual, hardcore, Pond Life, or anything in between. In my personal view. Right.
Listen to him. He's all, oh yeah. Now I'm going to pop in here.
I'm going to respond to VK Viper first if I can, because I don't want to be misconstrued.
State what his comment is for people who are on YouTube who unfortunately
absolutely. So VK Viper at Mizpah. How can you say someone is an idiot if he can't grasp the game? You should go find a better group rather than saying I'm competitive and the rest are bad. That's the sole reason why people start flaming in games. Be competitive with yourself, brackets self-improvement. VK Viper, if I were to turn around and say someone was an idiot because they can't grasp the game, I would be being completely wrong and I would be being an absolute idiot. That isn't what I'm saying. If someone chooses to actively not grasp the game, if someone chooses to act in a manner that's detrimental to the group around them, thus compromising the aims and goals of the group, whether they're stated or unstated, you are in a dungeon. The chances are you want to kill bosses, pick up loot, do the dungeon in a reasonable timescale. I'm not suggesting we sprint through it, playing Chase the Tank. That annoys me greatly as well. Or AoE all the way through it. But if someone is choosing to be very negative and disrespectful to their group, they're an idiot. That is not the same as someone saying, hey, I've just logged in. How does this game work? Oh, wait, you can turn with the mouse. Great. Talk to that person. Educate that person. They're not an idiot. The idiots, in my view, are the people that always refuse to learn, think they're the best thing since sliced bread, go around telling everybody this particular fact, and spoil everyone else's experiences. And that, I think, is true for all games. I hope that makes it a little bit clearer.
And the thing is, I have to agree with him there. To me, the people who are idiots are the ones who willingly choose to be ignorant. There's a difference between willingly being ignorant and unwillingly being ignorant. When you start playing a game, you don't know all the mechanics, so you're ignorant of how the game works. This ignorant is not a negative term in this. It's just you don't know. I'm using the actual definition here. You are unaware of how it works. However, if you choose to, after someone has said repeatedly, if you stand in a telegraph to use Wildstar's type of example, if you stand in a telegraph and you don't move, there is a good chance you will die. If you are told this repeatedly and you choose to never move because you are willfully choosing to ignore, you're willfully choosing to ignore it, that to me doesn't necessarily mean idiot. It makes me see them as someone who is an egotistically self-driven individual who only cares about themselves. And probably not very well because they're not taking care of themselves at that particular moment in time. I keep dying. Why is the telegraphs working? Or there was this great Twitter comment from, I believe it was the Grumpy Grunnock, who said something along the lines of, just ran a dungeon, kept dying, stayed out of all the telegraphs, even the green ones. Why didn't I get healed? You know, I'm just sitting there going, ah! Granted, it was a joke, but I mean, that kind of is the point, but yes.
Yeah. It's really worthwhile making the point. There is no negative or failing in not knowing every aspect of a game.
Correct.
Refusing to learn for years on end because you think you're better than the rest of the world is a mark on the player themselves that is not learning. Some environments are better at teaching than others. There is a skill set in saying, hey bud, have you thought about doing this? This might help out here in a way that isn't demeaning to the player, which puts their back up. And someone made that reference in chat. And yeah, actually, social skills in gaming, they're important. Who'd have thunk it?
Especially in an MMO or anything that has an online kind of connotation to it. It's very different trying to do social interactions with Candy Crush on your phone versus, you know, say actually putting the time in to help somebody build something in another game. But yes, we have had a lot of fantastic comments, and I think we do.
Feed us questions.
I think what I am going to do is move into this. Let me get your name so that I pronounce it correctly. Gernicus. Gernicus has made several great comments from the very start before we even began and throw out a question. Simple, point blank. Has anyone looked up the definition of game yet? Have you?
Yes. Okay.
What's the definition of game? Mizpah, putting him on the spot.
The ultimate definition of a game is a systematic form of competition, usually governed by a set forms of rules that have a known outcome.
You've obviously never roleplayed. There is no known outcome there.
If you go down the game theory route, basically, that's where I'm coming from.
Well, in this particular case, I just threw it real quickly into Google. It's a form of competitive activity or sport played according to rules. So competitive is automatically put into the nature of the game, which I agree with. Like we were saying, when it comes to this particular topic, we both agree that competition is innately in part of games. However, what we don't necessarily agree with is the making it the core reason why someone plays a game. And that's based on our differences and opinions and all that stuff. But that's how we function. Ms. Panay, we don't always agree. Is that not noticeable? Okay, we've had another question. And this is, again, from Gernicus, because this all kind of leads together. This was, it's important to compete against hardcore if you have a job/kids, etc. So it shouldn't be rammed down your throat when you finally have time to play. Now, this kind of goes, in my opinion, towards how do you deal with competition in a game based on what your goals are for that game. Because we agree that competition requires a goal. And if your goal is something in particular, and it doesn't match up to somebody else's goal. So let's take an example. Let's pretend, just for this moment in time, and this is so not true, people, so don't believe it, Mizpah only PvPs. That's how he levels. He doesn't do anything else. He is a PvPer, end of story. Boom. Whereas I do literally nothing else except hardcore, world first, boss mechanic stuff. That's my thing. I'm a PvEer. And he and I come up and we walk past each other in a city.
I'll just moan at you for your lack of spatial awareness and move on.
Oh, but it takes spatial awareness in order to be able to take the bosses down that I take down. What are you on about?
Just trotting out one of the PvP cliches.
Right. But would it be in the best interest of the community? Would it be in the best interest of competitive community for me to look down upon Mizpah because he is a PvPer? or for him to look down on me because I'm a PvEer, or for us to look down on anybody else because all they like to do is roleplay. No. I don't believe that is a positive way of fostering any form of competition. Now, one way that I could help to positively enforce competition in a game community setting is turn to Mizpah and go, have you killed X yet? Knowing full well that X happens to be their rival. And just say, so what do you need to do in order to take them down? You know, really support them in whatever goal it is that Mizpah has as the PvPer. That, to me, helps to build a healthy competition. And he could turn around to me and go, so I heard you died in that last fight by standing in the fire. And I could go, I know. So one part of it is supporting the community. The other side of it is when someone comes to you to have some kind of competitive nature towards you, you need to be willing to hear them out and not see it as an attack. I think that's where the negative side of competition comes from. People automatically assume just because someone is being competitive, they're attacking you. And I think that causes miscommunication. So try to remember, folks, when someone comes to you and starts to, joke with you or tease you in a game in a competitive manner about, oh, my house is bigger than yours, or, my epic roleplay story is longer than yours, or I've killed more people in this particular thing than that. Unless they are so egocentric that everyone in the community knows that they are toxic and everyone is trying to get rid of them, try to take it as a joke and try to understand that not everyone's out to get you. Just because someone is competitive does not mean that they are attacking you as an individual. So, and also be supportive. They could be
an ass.
They could be an ass, period. And that's not something that we personally here condone. We want to support people in a positive manner and help build them. That's what we do here. But anyway, so that's my rant. Gosh, me and my soapboxes. I am all for them.
Going to have to pick up on the shirt comment in the channel and give some mad props out to Shinogi and Kasabian because they designed these. This is one of them. This is a guild shirt, WildStar themed, blah blah blah. Yeah, they're kind of fun. It's the back of these are even better.
I was going to wear my gray one today, but then I decided I'd wear black. I'm in mourning because it's Monday. Right. So the next question. And I do apologize, by the way, for rant.
Comment.
Yes, I made that.
I'd like to pick up on Guernicus's comment.
I'll let you do so, because I just totally soapboxed. And
I don't see it on there, so I'm just going to paraphrase.
It's right there.
Oh, there we go. It's also impossible to compete against the hardcore if you have a job, kids, etc., so it shouldn't be rammed down your throat when you finally have time to play. Guernicus, for the first time, I disagree with you with something that you're saying. It is not impossible to compete at almost all levels. You just have to make smarter choices in how you use your time, how you are efficient, how you are structured, how your organization is set up. We've been very competitive on a third of the time that others would put in. So I rail against the misnomer about the definition of hardcore is I can afford to spend 100 hours a week. If you've got that luxury, fantastic. I don't.
Well, just because you put 100 hours in a game does not make you competitive on a hardcore level.
Did you use them efficiently?
Yeah.
Did you waste a third of them? If you wasted half of your hours, but I was really effective, I can do everything you can do in half the time. So hours by themselves, they have an impact, but they are not the be-all and end-all. Attitude, how you do stuff, setting smart goals. I would argue that someone could be, quote-unquote, hardcore on 20 hours a week.
And I am going to turn around and say I think you only got part of that question. There is a big difference between someone sitting there and making effective and efficient decisions to accomplish their goals versus having someone walk up and say, you don't play enough, you don't get good enough, you aren't good enough, you sure as heck don't have the shoulder pads of Badger awesomeness that allow me to ride this pony across this lake. So, there is a huge difference between having someone shove that down your throat versus having, that's kind of why I went to that community soapbox briefly there.
Yeah, but if someone's doing that, they're a piece of anatomy. It's as simple as that. It's nothing to do with...
Finger?
Take your pick. People can be creative. I'm sure they can think of something.
Yes. There's your challenge for the week, folks. If someone is completely being a total and utter pain in some other anatomy part, fill in the blank there.
They're being a coccyx.
I don't know whether I need to beep that or not. Thanks.
It's a valid word in the English dictionary. It's also a body part.
Coccyx, yeah, that is. I agree with that. Okay, more questions for the peoples. We've had Larius ask a whole lot of questions, but that's to be expected. We have learned that Larius has opinions and is not afraid to share them.
Opinions.
You didn't really do much, but get a little louder. Go on, put your echo effect on.
It didn't.
Go on.
What's just happened to my echo effect? Is it not working?
Now you just
Do I have no echo here?
You sound like you're underwater. Breathing underwater. Anyway. If you have questions for us, by the way, involving this particular topic of, being competitive and things like that. Whoops. As I knock stuff over on my desk.
We're breaking things.
You stop that! Put your microphone back. Oh my goodness. Anyway, if you have questions, do it like RCCS has just done, Angelic Mayhem has done. Put your questions in with a Q and a colon, and I will grab them and we will tackle them. So we have Larius, and I'm just going to pick one. It says, question, why would you not want to compete in an MMORPG? If you ever battleground or arena, you compete. If you raid, not LFR, but real raid, you compete. Not just against the game, but also against other players in your raid. For example, you compete for your spot. You compete for number 1 in DPS or heals. You compete for server or world first progression. So the question I want to throw to you is, why would you not want to compete in specifically an MMORPG?
I wouldn't not want to compete. Next.
No. I want you to put yourself in someone else's shoes who doesn't, and I'd like for you to tell me why you think they
would. The reason why someone would try to act in a non-competitive fashion and would, in my personal opinion, convince themselves incorrectly of the fact that they're not competing is simply going to be the negative connotations of competition, the prospect of failure, and a lack of confidence when it comes to making that inevitable comparison that comes off the back of competition. However, I think all of those rationales and reasons are by themselves negative, not positive, and a result of communities and the attitudes of others and or self-confidence. So if anyone is behaving in that fashion for those reasons, it would be good if they were surrounded by a more positive set of individuals and or community that would allow them to take on competition with impunity.
I think... What's today's date?
I'd have to look. It's been a long day.
It's the 24th.
24th.
And what time is it?
20:52.
Mark in your calendars that Mizpah and I 100% agree on something. That's the thing. What we don't agree on is the application of it, but what we do agree on is a bit of the definition. I think for some people, the negative connotation or even a fear of failure prevents them from wanting to acknowledge that they might be competing in something. I think it really is up to the community to offer the supportive structure of, hey, do you want to get better at X? Even if you're not stating you're competing against the other people in your raid, it's more or less, last raid you were able to control 7 mobs without interruption, and that was brilliant. Can you do 8 this raid? Now, notice I avoided the DPS thing, because that is something that Mizpah and I will again get on a soapbox about, because there is a huge difference between being top on the meters because you didn't do your job of controlling a mob and some people died because you didn't follow through with your utility, etc. But my point
also, as the word meters has been used, I have to just paste this link while you carry on talking. I hope a lot of people have seen this before.
Okay. But, as far as we are concerned here, having people teach people to be competitive in a positive manner in a game is good, because in the end, people are going to get better. You're either going to get better at taking down that Murloc, or you're going to get better at taking down that Rousdower, or you're going to get better at fighting that Sith Inquisitor in PvP, or you're going to get better at solving the puzzles that are brought to you by the Illuminati. It makes no difference. But if you want to get better at something, look at it for yourself first. How can I improve? And then, if you remember my rant, and hopefully some of you guys had caught the rant that we had, look at how your improvements can impact and empower your community, be it the group you currently are running with, or be it the community as a server-wide whole thing, or your guild, or what have you. Because when you start dealing in MMOs, everything you do can impact those around you. So That would be that. Now, I'm going to ask one more question, and then we're going to bring this down to a little bit of a close because we are definitely getting to the end of our time here. Does not mean we will not have a post show.
We'll have a little bit of a post show.
We will have a little bit of a post show because you need to tell people the story of your phone because this is just crazy. Absolutely crazy. Oh, this stuff happens to Mizpah. It's like it only happens to him kind of a deal. But anyway, I'm going to pick Angelic Mayhem's question here. Would you say that competitiveness is more of a thing that happens with tanks as opposed to other classes like rangers or medics?
No.
I think competition, as we've pretty much now really, I think we've really got it to a point of understanding competition isn't everything. I think the goals you choose to compete for vary. And so, for example, Mizpah may be competing to have, the most mobs controlled while he's pushing out the most DPS. Whereas mine might be to push out the most DPS while assisting controlling only when called upon. We may have two completely different goals, have to value and judge our successes individually instead of against other people. That's more a matter of self goal achievement. But I think in the end, there will be some kind of competition there. And I think we've got that one. But yes.
And I think that is probably our close to take us into the post show. Doesn't that just sum it up nicely?
Almost quite.
Or do you want another one?
No, it's not.
You want another
question
first?
No, I have things I actually need to share.
We can't have structure and organisation in an MMO buff show on a Monday. Is that allowed?
It is if you want to keep your badger.
But.
For those of you who are just joining, the badger reference goes back to at the start of the show, so I do apologize if you don't
I'd just like to say
that.
badger is not a euphemism. I'd just like to make this very clear here.
No. We're talking about badger brush, bristly brush type thing. But anyway, one of the things I want to do, yes, since this topic is huge, please, when I put these things up onto YouTube, go to YouTube. If you've got more comments, throw them in because we can always come back and revisit a topic. In fact, we really appreciate that because it allows us to go even more in depth. No topic about the human nature will allow anything.
And I just have to read something out. Unfortunately, BC Larius needs to go, so he's not going to hear the epic saga of the phone. But he had a great time discussing with you guys, even though Pseudo is almost always wrong and Mizpah is almost always right.
Now, that's up for debate. But that's okay. That's the thing. We're going to have different drives, and that's something that we're going to be going into in a show. And I really can't wait for that. But let me pull it back here. Like I said, if you've got questions, comments, and things like that, don't hesitate to leave them on YouTube, etc., or even on our website because we do put these up on the website. We can always revisit.
In fact, guys, we'd really love to see a few more peeps checking out the YouTube page. We're doing quick bites. We're putting videos up. Mm-hmm. We're going to start pushing a bit of traffic over there. We'll be starting a few more videos as well. You won't just get excerpts of shows. You'll get things happening from WildStar, things happening from other games. I might do the occasional 5-minute monologue rant in the near future. A few other bits and pieces are being planned.
Yes, and for those of you who are interested, when you go to MMO Buff's YouTube page, there is a featured channel called Pseudo Surplus. It has some things on it. You're the first people to learn about it. Just saying. But anyway, okay, so pulling it back, we will come back probably to this topic again. A lot of these topics evolve, especially the more we learn. But anyway, I wanted to let you guys know, we are starting to get to a point, and it's a brilliant point to be in, where I am going to need people to help me out with each show. And I'm specifically talking about not just the people to help a BAM, but I need moderators who are willing to put aside a little bit of time on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and I can have multiple moderators. You don't have to do all of them. So I'm looking for people to help me keep track of questions, comments, and things that are of import. So if this is something that interests you, if there's a particular show that really interests you, be it Monday's discussions where we talk about MMOs and everything, Tuesdays where we go about communities, Wednesdays where we talk about things like TCGs and online TCGs, and Fridays where we tend to tackle WildStar, please get in touch with me, pseudo@MMOBuff.TV. I am looking for a few good gamers. Sorry, I'm just really proud of my own little joke. So, covering a few things that are coming up. Next week's show on MMO Buff, we're going to be taking a look at raid skill development. The reason for this is we've had a question come in from somebody, Adam B. from YouTube, who specifically said, do you have any recommendations for raid skill development, whether it's for tanks or others? Oh, yes, we do. And we would like to bring that to you. So we're going to tackle that show on Monday. If you have any ideas or suggestions, you can email me again, or you can go to MMOBuff.TV and in the upper right-hand corner, click on Contact. Tomorrow, the campfire may or may not have a particular individual in orange on our show with us. It depends entirely upon schedule assignment. We'll know soon enough. But tomorrow's show, we are talking about the superpowered community. And not Enigma Guild, you noob.
Oh, I've typed the wrong URL. Ignore that, please, entirely.
By the way, that URL doesn't even work.
No. Well, it's actually an email address, but yes.
It's voice at MMOBuff.TV.
MMOBuff.TV.
Correct.
That's what I get for multitasking. Sorry, folks.
I got to call Mizpah a noob. That's great.
Gotta happen at least once a year.
Yeah, pretty much. But yes, tomorrow we're talking about the superpowered community and the campfire, so feel free to join us. On Wednesday, we'll be sacrificing other random pixelated creatures, mostly Chuas, as we summon Dr. Marshmallow to help us look at the submitted decks that people submitted from the challenge that we threw you guys last week. Go to YouTube in order to see the challenge from Top Deck. And we are also going to be looking at power levels and consistency. So hopefully you will join on Wednesday as we dig even deeper into Hearthstone in specific. Thursday, there will be some streaming. I'm not going to tell you what, but there will be some. Cheeky smile. And then Friday, we're going to be digging ourselves into all kinds of things WildStar related. In fact, we're doing something a little different. Regardless of what gets dropped to us on Wednesday in Cosmotronic, we're doing Ask a Beta Tester question. So if you have questions you want us to answer about WildStar, and we have quite a few, but if you have some that really tickle our fancy and we go, whoa, that was a brilliant, intelligent question, we will throw them into the Ask a Beta Tester a question.
We have a few questions that technically we can't answer yet.
Correct.
But I am going to be seeking specific permission to answer them.
Yes.
So there might be some very interesting answers coming up.
Yes.
Get your questions in.
Yes. And
note the might.
Yes. Well, that's the thing. You know, we have to respect the game companies and the game developers, and that's something we here at MMOBuff do. We respect people, and we try to help spread respect, although I don't respect Mizpah at all. Mizpah doesn't respect me either, so it works well. Oh, you know I love you. Silly thing.
Right.
But yes, on that note, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull us through. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, I'm sorry you could not join us live. We're going to go into post-show, and we're going to just basically let our hair down and really open up for free-form discussion with everybody who happens to be here. Again, for all of you who have joined, thank you. Thank you so very much. And on that note, I will let you do what you need to do, Mizpah.
In which case, it's time to sum up. Thank you, everybody, for the show. Great chat, great comments, intelligent conversation going on. I actually had to multitask a lot today. I was trying to read and follow the conversations because they were great, whilst also potentially talk a little bit in the general direction of a microphone. So really enjoyed your interaction, folks. Keep it up. It's fantastic. Keep it coming. It makes our lives so much easier. Thank you. But it's time to say goodbye. More stuff coming up in the week, more stuff coming up in the post-show, more stuff coming up on social media, and of course on MMOBuff.TV. But it is time to say goodbye. So, it's probably a toodle pip from Pseudo.
Toodle pip.
And of course, this is Mizpah for MMOBuff.TV. Signing off. Cheers, folks.
Yo, Pseudo here. Thanks for watching episode 20, The Competitive Experience, where Mizpah and myself debate out truth or fiction. The core reason to play an MMO is the competitive experience. If you agree or disagree with any of the comments that Mizpah and myself have made, please let us know below. If you have any questions, comments, anything that you want us to know, let us know below. And, yeah, Thank you for watching. Please remember, if you like this, to subscribe, like, share, all those other glorious things. Speak with you guys very, very soon. Doodle pip.